I think we'll get started if that's okay. Others can join in the next few minutes. They'll miss my exciting introduction, but that's their loss. My name is Andrew Wilson. I'm an account manager for the Supply Chain Sustainability School. I work very closely with National Highways. We at the school are supporting a number of their frameworks, working in partnership with main contractors, delivering many National Highways frameworks and major projects, but also all the way through the value chain. As I'm sure you're aware, we've got a bank of training content, of learning resources at supplychainschool.co.uk, which are freely available to all companies, not just in the infrastructure sector, but right across the built environment. This morning's webinar is all about decarbonising the highway sector, reducing carbon emissions through the use of technology and innovation. We've got three fantastic examples from different aspects of the supply chain. We've got a plant hire company speaking about their low carbon solutions on heavy plant and equipment. We've got a welfare site facilities provider with some superb innovation and technology around their equipment and products. And we've also got an engineering solutions provider to talk about footbridges that they provide to the sector, which bring with them a very low carbon benefit. So it's fantastic to hear from three suppliers who are doing business with major contractors, doing business with National Highways in the value chain, which are helping at scale to reduce carbon from the sector. As you're probably aware, this is part of a wider program of support which the school is providing for National Highways right across the regional delivery partnership, who are delivering the regional improvement strategy for framework. A little bit of housekeeping. If you've got any questions throughout this morning's webinar, we're online for 90 minutes. We are recording the webinar, by the way, and we'll be providing PDFs of people's slides after this morning's event. So there's no need to scribble down every single note that you wish to, because we'll be providing PDF copies of slides to the audience who've joined this morning. I was going to mention, in terms of housekeeping, if there are any questions, just drop them into the Q&A, if that's okay, within the Zoom, and we'll try and handle those as we go through, and should also have some time at the end for general Q&A. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'm just going to very quickly share a little bit more detail about the agenda. As you see there, we are also joined by Dean Currick-Crisp, who's Head of Sustainable Development at National Highways. Dean's going to share a few thoughts on the net zero strategy, which National Highways now have in place, to provide a bit of context and background. And then I'm going to pass across to the three case studies who joined us this morning. Thanks to all of our speakers, Tom, James and Andy. We're going to hear from them in that order as you see on the screen. So that's enough from me. I'm going to pass across now to Dean. We've got a lot of material to get through. Dean, thanks for joining, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I was smiling there when he said he had three fantastic speakers, and I thought, yeah, and you've got me as well. That's the short straw for everybody. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, Head of Sustainable Development Design, probably that's a bit too grand. But that's the area we're into. So if we just move on, Andrew, please, I'll just say low carbon through technology and innovation, absolutely, but through design as well. I think that you all know the big gains will be on what we build, if we build, is the question. Don't worry about expenditure and investment on the strategic road network. That I'm not saying it's for sure, but it will be there, and we'll say why in a second. But we need to think careful about what we're investing for, because we have put out a net zero highway plan, and it has some challenging targets in. So let's have a look at that, Andrew, and then we'll talk around that area. Let's say something about the network first. I think many of you will know it's only 2-3% of the roads in the country, but it carries a huge proportion of the traffic. A third of all traffic, and just over 2/3 now of all the freight is on our network. So it takes a hammering And as a consequence, it really is vital to the UK economy. Of course, we use it for work, to visit friends and family, and of course, as I said there, with freight to move goods around the country. However, since 2016-17, surface transport is now the UK's largest greenhouse gas emitting sector, and the bulk of that is surface transportation, and the vast majority of that is roads. We're talking 90+%. So it's on everybody's agenda, everybody's radar, as it were, and certainly on our agenda too now. Going forward, I mean, even if there's a large shift to alternative modes like rail and active travel, there's no getting away from most journeys will continue to be on the SRN because of the position and the connectivity that this network offers. Therefore, we need to deliver a net zero strategic road network going forward in the future. What's our plan to do that? Well, about a year ago, we published our net zero plan, net zero highways plan, and it has three main parts, areas we've talked about for some time. I've talked about, I'm sort of history here. The new carbon team in the division that I'm in will take this all forward. But I think some of you may know I've been talking around carbon, as I say, for some time. I used to own the corporate carbon emissions. That is this company. The main component in there is the energy used on the network. So there is this connection between what we design, what we build, and therefore what we operate. Does it have to be lit? What is the technology out there? How long is it there for? And so on and so forth. And you're going to hear about not the installation, probably not the installation of the long-term features that consume electricity, but certainly the stories move through on efficiency and choice, that they're pertinent to the site and to the operation of the network as well. We are looking to transition our traffic officer fleet to EVs. We're on hybrids at the moment. I hope that works out. Need to look at the numbers because we've had diesel vehicles, and given the type of operation the traffic officers do, I think personally I'm a little nervous that petrol hybrids will work. But if they do, then fantastic, and I'll just put myself back in the box. Yes, we want to reduce the energy use in our offices, so that's gas and electric, and on our business travel, which of course has taken a phenomenal hit in the last couple of years, as we've all sat here, and we really need to get out and do business. So that's something we need to watch out. Our mode of choice is, if we have to travel, our mode of choice is public transport, so rail, and our offices are readily accessible. We're looking at how we generate power as well, and some sequestration from trees as well. Perhaps more pertinent to this audience is our ambition for maintenance construction activities to be net zero by 2040. We are looking this year to implement a carbon management system past 2080. I know it's up for rewrite, so we're going to have to be quite agile in our work on that, and really to support you, our supply chain, on the use of net zero materials, on construction plants and all the works on site, the compounds, the welfare facilities, and what we build. So there you go. I think that cues up our excellent speakers today, as Andrew introduced them. I look forward to the guys speaking shortly. We want to build our first net zero enhancement scheme. We've claimed it for a maintenance or surface renewal project up in the northwest. Again, I'll be honest with you and say the offsetting was plus 40%. So there's still some way to go on materials choices, on logistics, on site operation, and the way we work, and really what we're doing when we're implementing major civils jobs. So I suppose the message here in this area, the company, National Highways, is looking for management system, checking our specifications, launching innovation programs for net zero materials, and this roadmap, particularly on concrete, asphalt and steel. We're doing that now. We're live on that. We've got project initiation documents running on a whole host of targeted things. We're going through our design manual for roads and bridges, that's specifications and specification for highworks, MCHW as was, and the design from DMRB. We're calling by 2025 really for our tier 1, tier 2 suppliers to have their carbon management systems too, and really be working on all this together. And then we'll be looking at that sort of period to commission a long-term partner really to deliver a major net zero scheme. Pertinent to today's speakers, we're really looking for by 2030 that we have zero carbon plant on site. So it'll be interesting to hear how realistic that is, how challenging it is, and what the opportunities are there for plant and for cabins for facilities on site. So that's really pertinent, and the speakers are right on message for that. As I say, I think I said major scheme constructed by about 2035, which is a net zero construction. A big challenge, I think, probably by 2040 is that the HGVs, the logistics, delivering materials, fuels, and people to site. Well, probably not the HGVs people, but no mind, that they'll be zero as well. So we have to have this dialogue with the industry and with the whole transport sector on that, which I suspect leads me to the final target there on the screen in front of you, the net zero carbon travel on our roads by 2050. Yes, we're now sort of launching some work. I think it's just gone out to look at energy storage as being the mechanism for MSAs to offer more rapid EV charging facilities if they haven't got the power just coming down the cable, then maybe a combination of mains and storage, maybe with a bit of renewable backup. You're sort of delivering battery to site. You're having battery there, so that's quite an exciting thing, because it's something I looked at some years ago, delivering battery rather than delivering. I suppose it's akin to a tanker, isn't it? Going to a fuel station, delivering and just trickle charging those, because those batteries are big now, and I'm sure we're going to hear about that today. So they can really do something. Really interesting coach travel. I know our former CEO talked about our network being the green travel choice, and he straight away sort of rattled off. Obviously, if we operate that network efficiently, but also rattled off coaches, electrically powered, maybe platooning, and you just think, yeah, you're sort of getting all the benefits there of the energy of the fuel and the efficiency as well. Yes, we've already got our traffic officers better trained for recovering of EVs, and we've been supporting the net zero HGV trials from the government, but a lot has to change. I think society is changing. Even your top gear speakers are sort of getting excited by probably by the power, but the delivery of the EV vehicle, and I think well that's coming, isn't it? And legislation's backing that up. So there are three main target areas: 2030 for the company, national highways; 2040 for maintenance construction activities out on the network; and 2050 for the road user. And if that's delivered, probably not in my lifetime, but if it is, then maybe I'll smile up at you from somewhere down below. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Dean. Just one very quick question on the road user emissions part. We had it, I'm sure it's on most people's minds as well who drive EVs, around infrastructure. And I know you've covered that, but the question came in, will the infrastructure for electric cars improve in the future? I'm assuming the answer is yes. But can you answer that kind of succinctly, and you might wish to provide more detail that we can send out to webinar participants following?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, we have checked, as people may know, during road period 1, we ensured that, I think the stats are something like 95% of the network is within 20 miles of a charging point. there's a part to say, is it our job, which sounds a nasty thing to say, but we're clearly on the motorway network through the MSAs. Yes, we're making those interventions, and we're empowering the motorway service areas to do that. They have the right to sell fuel, making sure they have the capabilities the right to put charging in place. The real infrastructure challenge, I think, if I look at my own family, I'm all right, Jack, here, but he says with a diesel car on the driving, my son's living in a flat in Cheltenham. How would he charge his EV? He can't have a cable coming out the first floor window. I've seen equipment that just has EV charging things just in street lighting columns. So you think, okay, that kind of makes sense for local authorities. Charging facilities, shopping, work, and I think it's probably place of work. My office here in Bedford, we have charging facilities actually closer to the door than the CEO's parking would be, and as close as the bicycle storage. So yeah, so the whole society needs to move that way. We're trying to do our bit, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Dean. It's obviously a huge topic, isn't it, and worth a number of individual webinars in its own right. So thanks again for your background, the context that you provided, and that three-phased approach to decarbonising the highways sector. And we're going to look at the second part of that, obviously this morning, the maintenance and construction part of the equation. Tom Nicotra has kindly joined us from Tasika, who's our first presenter, who is here to talk about their footbridges, and in particular a legacy footbridge that Tasika provide into the sector. Tom, thanks for joining us, and I think you're going to share your own slides, is that right?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thank you, Andrew, and thanks for having us. Just share my own slides if you can all see that. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Is that on full screen now?
Not at the moment.
Yeah. No, is that okay?
It is now, yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, okay, perfect, no problem. So yeah, I'm here today to talk about our new FRP legacy footbridge, just explain a bit about the story, where it's sort of going, where it's come from, etc. My name's Tom Nicotra, as Andrew said. I'm the Business Development Director in Southern England for Tasika. It's unapologetically looks like a railway footbridge at the moment. I know this is a highways presentation, but this footbridge has been initially developed for the rail sector. We were part of a 2-year innovation program, which was Network Rail led. It was a voluntary program that Tasika was, put ourselves forward, and this is the result of our footbridge that we created for that program. Hence why it looks like a railway footbridge. I'm sort of here today to talk around what we've done on the railway side of it, where it's going on the railway side of it. We're not actively doing anything on the highways network yet, but it's certainly our aspiration for the future, and that's where we'd like it to go. But don't see any reason why it wouldn't be going that way. So very small snapshot around Tasika for anyone that doesn't know us. We're a UK business, we're a national company. We've got head offices in the Northwest, but we're based all over the country. Our fabrication facilities are in the Northwest, where we manufacture and build our new footbridges and steel footbridges and new railway bridges predominantly. For anyone that doesn't know us, we've been in the UK for a long time. We date back to the 1960s. We used to be TI coatings, so we've blasted and painted many bridges over the whole country. Many of the largest, most well-known structures we've had the privilege of refurbishing over the years. And recently, sort of 3 years ago, we created an engineering solutions business. We've got 2 fabrication facilities, so we've moved much more into the manufacturing of new bridges, footbridges, mainline railway bridges. And that's become a huge core part of our business now. And we believe that background in bridge refurbishment, and also that background in manufacturing new steel bridges, gives us a really good insight into the needs of what a footbridge needs to maintain it. And that's one of the reasons why we were approached by Network Rail to be part of this innovation program. Plus, we did have a natural passion for FRP. So yeah, we've done a lot of highways refurb projects, including the Tamar Road Bridge down in Devon. We were there for 6 years. We are a provider into the RDP network. So this is a job we were doing don't know if you can see it, the Grange footbridge in Windy Harbour for Kia. So we're a tier 2 provider, and this is one we're currently going to be manufacturing. It's a steel bridge and installing for Kia as part of the RDP network. So it's a fantastic scheme and one we're looking forward to doing. So the innovation program that brought these footbridges about, there's a massive challenge at the moment, particularly on the rail network, where there's a real need for new footbridges. You know, there's a need for new footbridges over level crossings. There's 5,000 level crossings in the UK. The problem is at the moment, a lot of the concrete bridges, a lot of the steel bridges have a large carbon footprint. They're expensive to maintain. They're not in line with the decarbonisation goals required. And they're expensive. They're really expensive to put in. So part of this innovation program was to look at where the costs are as to put in a traditional footbridge. We're looking at reducing that cost, and we're looking at, the idea was to drop in a low cost, low maintenance, lightweight footbridge, which has got the best quality possible for the lowest cost possible. And that was the driver. And unfortunately, particularly on the rail network, people do lose their life. This was actually a true story about the young lady who unfortunately lost her life, and it didn't actually inspire our engineering director to look into this bridge. And this was at a level crossing where she was unfortunately hit by a train. And it does go to show that, you know, the lack of footbridges on the network, particularly on the rail side, does actually cost people lives. So there is a real need for new bridges. And yeah, so they're disruptive to build, they're costly to maintain. We would know that better than anyone because we're a bridge refurbishment company. They need regular painting every 25 years, subject to rot and rust. And that's where there's a real need. So that's where the story began, really. I like this slide where it sort of says from concept to reality. You know, we're not here by accident. This was a 2-year innovation. We engaged with 2 universities, 3 design consultants. We engage with over 100 UK suppliers. It's really important to us that this is 100% UK source material. So this bridge is UK manufactured, UK sourced. So it's UK manufacturing at its best. And you have thousands of hours put into this development of this bridge, and a lot of it was our engineering director's own personal time. To be honest, it's a real passion of his, and I'd just like to point out, so far we've had no public funding for this whatsoever. So it's something that's close to our hearts and something we're really passionate about. So this is the legacy bridge. You saw a snapshot of it earlier on, but in essence, it's cost-effective, flexible solution. It's got a modular design. We can install it in a number of days. It's more sustainable than traditional steel or concrete bridges. And that's both, you know, initial sustainability, but also whole life sustainability as well, which I can talk about later. And it's really flexible in terms of the way it looks aesthetically, because it looks like a railway footbridge right now. But our aspiration is to work closely with the highways network to actually, you know, get it looking, getting designing more suitable for the highways as well. So we've definitely got that aspiration. So it comes with a unique design and connection details, which is patented, and it's our intellectual property, but it gives you a sort of a snapshot as to what it looks like and how that modular sections are built. You know, a lot of traditional FRP bridges, particularly on the rail network, are made by molded sections of FRP, so that, you know, you bring molds in, and then they're sort of fitted or glued together. And there's massive amount of limitation when you mold FRP, because you have to produce a certain amount to enable the cost to, you know, the cost savings to come. We looked at it from building our bridge from structural sections, like you'd build a traditional steel bridge. It's just made from structural sections of FRP, and it's got massive benefits because you can store those structural sections in our facility, whether we're making 1 bridge, whether we're making 10 bridges. The idea is to keep that design simple, whether it's, you know, a 12 to 35 meter span. It's a very similar design. It's made by similar components, similar structural sections. So it just saves, it's all about that mass production and reducing waste. And it's also easy to inspect because it is made from structural sections. So rather than molded sections, which sort of from an engineering perspective, it's difficult to inspect. So it's really flexible in terms of span length. We've got actually got 3 designs now, but this is more than 2. So 12 to 20 meters and 21 to 35 meters. So we're pushing the limits in terms of traditional FRP footbridges. As I talked around before, it can be made with or without roofs, but it's not suitable for, that's more for rail networks. Ramps, not a problem. Multiple stairs, the span itself with no stairs, no problem whatsoever. It's a really flexible solution, and one that, yeah, it's a moving vehicle, and one that we're constantly trying to develop and you know, design and make better. So we proposed we're coating ours with a fluoropolymer paint system, which is a fantastic paint system. It's you know, they paint all their bridges in Japan with this system. We've, you know, using this on traditional steel as well. It gives some of the longest life on steel. We're using this at the moment on Blackfriars Road Bridge. So that's a major Thames crossing in London. We're painting that at the moment, and we're painting it with this fluoropolymer paint system because it lasts, I think it's guaranteed, it's the last 60 years on steel. But keeps its color. It's fantastic. But on FRP, it lasts even longer. So they've done accelerated weather testing for over 200 years, and it keeps its color. It doesn't fade. So aesthetically, it looks fantastic. So we firmly believe with this bridge, you only ever have to paint it once, and then you really can install it and leave it alone. Because of the weight of these bridges, they're a lot lighter weight than traditional steel bridges. So we looked at, where is the money spent? When you know, you install bridges. So we looked at looking at different technology in terms of the foundations coming away from wet trades, coming away from concrete. So we've looked at a micropile technology, which is sort of, there's a few available and few that we're looking at. And we can use other foundations if we need to, but we really like this solution because it works. It's quick to install. 80% faster, you got no weather or curing delays, and it's 60% cheaper than concrete foundations. So it has some massive benefits. For anyone that doesn't know FRP, it's got higher strength to weight ratio than metal, wood and concrete. It's corrosion resistant, it doesn't rust. It's got low thermal conductivity. It's warm to the touch as well, so ice doesn't really form on it in the winter, the same as steel it does. And as well, it's got a lower carbon footprint than steel and concrete, which I'll talk around in a bit. I put this in because I know it looks like a traditional rail bridge, and that's why our designs are there. You know, the original lattice panel look, Victorian architecture, one of the reasons why we called it the Legacy Bridge. But it's important to note that this legacy, or this lattice panel, is water jetted in, and we paint it. So really, aesthetically, it can look however you want it to look. It just looks like a railway bridge right now, but if it needs to look like a traditional highways bridge, we can make it looking like that as well. We've also got another design where we come away from the U-frame action and we actually incorporate into a structural deck, so you can actually have the parapets on the outside which have no structural purpose as well, so you can really have any parapets you want on the outside. So there's loads of different options available. So we talked around this as well. Our drivers behind this as well, we really do want, you know, we're a tier 2 predominantly supplier on the highways network, but we're a tier 1 supplier on the rail network. And we want to come away with, you know, extensive site compounds, you know, complicated access roads to install footbridges, because of the lightweight, because of the reduced time to install it, coming away with a lot of those costs that where traditionally the money gets spent, and actually it just goes into the bridge itself. So there's a few examples of cost savings. Now these are high level stuff that we've looked at for network rail, so I do apologize, it's not highways. And originally a lot of people have tried to sell FRP as being a more expensive option than steel. So it's like, well, you're going to pay more now, but you'll save more on a whole life cost basis. But we sort of went into it with a view, you know, money's strapped and money's tight right now, so you need to save money now. So it needs to be either cheaper or as cost effective as steel, and then you've got the whole life cost benefits on top of that as well. So, you know, we're pleased to say that, you know, especially with the recent steel prices rising, it's probably even more now. This was done 4 months ago, where our FRP option often comes up cheaper than steel. And then you get these massive whole life cost savings as well, where as a bridge painting company, every 25 years, you've got to go back, you've got to paint it, steel corrodes, so you've got to repair it, plate repairs, etc. You don't have to do any of that with FRP. So we've put a lot of that into the savings. So you've got that whole life cost saving of around 2.3 million over the over the life, and that includes another replacement of the FRP option as well. So sustainability at its core, this is all about sustainability. So we've done some sustainability estimates with NR, and we estimate it's around 58% lower carbon footprint compared to concrete and steel. The important facts are it's lighter weight, so there's lighter transport costs. It's 100% UK source, so we're not shipping our FRP off a slow boat in from China. We're protruding it from in a factory which is 30 miles away from our fabrication facility in Manchester. So the structural sections come into our facility, we fabricate it, we then install it, so you can trace it, and like I say, it's UK manufacturing. And then you get that whole life sustainability where it doesn't corrode, reducing concrete free as well, wherever we talked around as well, and the low wastage as well, because it's modular, we're building it off site and it's arriving fully built, so there's no wastage on site either. So we've worked out some embodied carbon calculations. Again, these are high level, and these were done as part of we're on a Transpennine route upgrade, rail upgrade in the north east of England, and that's we're looking at various steel compared to FRP options. So these are a number of bridges that we looked at, MVL3 and MVL3 18 and 10, comparing steel with FRP in terms of weight. And then we also looked at embodied carbon. So there's sort of different span bridges, hence the different savings in carbon, but one of them's got 47-ton embodied carbon saving, the other one's 17-ton embodied carbon. And that isn't taking into consideration the whole life sustainability, which I touched upon earlier, in terms of, you know, having to go back and refurbish it every 25 years. At the moment, you're blasting and painting it. You've got all that grit that goes to landfill all the time, you know, the cost and fuel to mobilize. So, you know, like I say, doing away with all of that. So anything that, you know, rid of our FRP, it requires 75% less energy than steel to produce. Its curing is exothermic, so it gives off heat, meaning the energy consumption per unit is extremely low. It's lighter than steel. As a result, 50% energy is required for transport. Talked around earlier, half that of a concrete bridge as well in terms of CO2. Also, the protrusion takes place in a fully enclosed process, which minimizes the evaporation process and the volatile chemicals. So it has some really good long-term effects as well. And there's also no harmful finishing that's required, such as hot dip galvanization as well. And it's also 100% recyclable. A lot of people don't know that. Even though the infrastructure in the UK at the moment doesn't support some of the recycling, but you know, it will be there when these bridges need to be recycled in 100 years' time, and it is 100% recyclable. And you can look on that website if you want to know more, compositesuk.com.co.uk. So our story so far, as I talked around, we're not doing this on the highways network. We want to be doing this on the highways network, but we're not. But the rail industry are really buying into this so far. We've actually had 4 single tender awards for us by Network Rail. So we're over the moon. Bear in mind, we really only brought this to market less than 12 months ago. And Network Rail in 5 different locations. We've looked at circa 40 sites for them across the country. And they've actually put this to panel, and it's been approved 4 times for a single source award through innovation and cost. And that's not easy to do. You know, we had no framework with them. We've had to really show them the benefits and demonstrate them the benefits, and they've put faith in us. So we're going to be installing 4 of these later in the year in the rail network, and we've actually got the opportunity to competitively tender against a steel bridge as well in the southeast in Kent, and we won that one as well. So far we've secured 5 orders for this, and we believe, yeah, that really is just the beginning. Once they start to get built and installed, we project the you know, it's just going to grow. So the future for the legacy footbridge, we're working with Network Rail's engineers actually to look at certain locations where it's actually cheaper to install a brand new FRP bridge. These are some of the footbridge locations at stations than it is to actually repair a bridge. So it's more sustainable and it's cheaper to put in a brand new FRP bridge than repair it. So we're working with Network Rail there. We're hoping that's going to take off in the next control period. I talked around, we got the Legacy Vision Bridge as well, which utilizes a structural deck instead, you know, which is a different design. We're also in discussions with a leading RDP delivery contractor, and And we're trying or hoping to hear back from them to obtain hopefully some funding from the HA to look at a 20-metre span highways bridge. So it's a real passion for us. Hopefully that will happen. We're looking at an FRP, OTX and OLE support on the rail network, so how they can be used for gantries and carrying cables over the railway. And we're also in early conversations with TfL, Transport for London, around FRP gantries as well. So we're excited about the future, and that's a little bit about our footbridge.
Thanks a lot, Tom. That was great hearing about how obviously you're becoming very successful at introducing those footbridges into the rail sector, but clearly from Highways' point of view, significant benefits also, and it's great to see that you've opened that marketplace up with negotiations with that RDP contractor. So good luck with that. And the design for the bridge on the Windy Harbour Kia scheme looked really interesting. I drove past that site a few weeks ago, so it'll be interesting when I next drive by that site. Hopefully your bridge will be getting put up there. So thanks for joining us this morning. There aren't any questions that have come through so far, but as they do, we'll hopefully have some time towards the end of the webinar, if that's okay, if you can stick around with us to join the conversation.
Sure, no problem. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tom. Our next presenter is James Barden from L Lynch. James, thanks for joining. Really interested to hear from a plant hire company, a leading plant hire company, with operating at scale, obviously across the RDP and other national highways frameworks. We hear a lot about technology, don't we, in plant, HVO, battery, hydrogen fuel cells. So it's great to hear from yourself about the current state of play, and with an eye to the future as well, and how that technology and innovation can help reduce carbon from the maintenance and construction aspects of the highway sector. Thanks for joining, James. I've got your slides haven't I at this end, so I'll share my screen again. Does that come through okay?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, just prompt me then. Thanks.
Yeah, so just an introduction. Obviously, my name is James Barden. I'm the head of sales for Lynch Plant. Thank you for having me on today. And this is just an overview of where we are as an industry, really. I mean, if there's any other plant companies joining, feel free to sort of ask questions or join in. As it stands at the moment, it's not as exciting as it was perhaps 18 months, 2 years ago. You might be disappointed to hear. The plant industry as a whole is around 10 years behind the automotive industry, and the automotive industry is obviously 10 years behind Formula One, which is where it all stems from. The infrastructure is sort of the biggest challenge at the moment from site and actually delivering an electric plant, which has caused a little bit of a nervousness at this stage with production of electric equipment, and obviously the batteries and the size of those batteries to power electric plants. But yeah, if you go to the next slide. So as it stands at the moment, we've one of the largest fleet of full electric plants within the UK. So we've got full electric excavators at 1.9 tonne, at 3 tonne. We've got 6-metre telehandlers. We also have tracked barrows, which hold 1.1 tonne of material, a little loading shovel, which again can move 2.2 tonne. And that is well, also, sorry, a 1.5 tonne full electric dumper. Aside from that, the plant itself doesn't get any larger. So there's potential for a 9 tonne full electric excavator in the next 18 months, realistically. And that's the biggest leap in development. We've unfortunately got a few NDAs, so there's some stuff I can't discuss. 18 months, 2 years time looks very exciting. It is all I can say, and we're certainly heading in the right direction. As I said, now just really for your projects, what I would ask you to really consider, because everybody in the construction industry has challenged us to bring electric plant to the table. I think we've succeeded so far in doing that. It may not be quite at the size people want at this point, but I'd also argue back you can't currently operate it properly at the size that it is. There really does need to be some thought given around charging infrastructure across networks, and an understanding that some of us have electric cars. I don't know who on the call does or doesn't, but you've had to adapt and you've had to change in the way that you travel. I'd ask that of you when setting up projects, and this isn't to be negative around electric plant. It just isn't as simple as pulling a Bowser up next to it. 15 minutes later, or not even 15 minutes, you've got a full tank of diesel and you can go again. You do have to give thought to shift patterns, to the operations that you're going to be undertaking with the electric plant. But it doesn't mean to say that it can't work. We've had some very successful projects on high speed too, which have used nothing but electric plant. We had a mass exhumation down in Euston, and because that was in a tented environment, we used full electric plant, and it sort of fell that the size of the equipment needed was at the size that is currently made. So I understand there's limitations on the size of plant available, but we absolutely can make it work, and there just needs to be a little bit more thought given to the site setups, really. As I said, you know, we feel we've brought electric plant to the industry, but the reality is it's probably in our yard as often as it is out on site, unfortunately. So yeah, next slide. So where we've sort of focused our energy really at this point in time is on hybrid plant. Again, because the ultimate goal is electric plant, there isn't as much choice as you might expect. I know with cars now, they're almost 2 to a penny. Every car seems to have a mild hybrid variant. I believe that's where the plant industry should be focusing. So we've to date spent over £5 million on hybrid plant, and we're again one of the biggest fleets in the UK. So we run 20-ton excavators, 40-ton excavators, and then a Cat D6 XE, which is a full electric drive. Unfortunately, again, that really is a limitation of hybrid plant on the market at this point in time. But the areas in which we have used it, it's been very successful. There's no limitation on the machine's ability compared to a diesel counterpart, and it only offers the same, if not more, in production value. So I would challenge again back to the RDP as to really consider mandating these machines in place of 20 and 40-ton excavators. If we were really serious, I think that's you know, we were very good as an industry to ban the use of non-cabbed dumpers, and it really forced everyone's arm into buying the dual views. The predominance of them on sites outside of Network Rail and outside of the national highways, the uptake has been incredible. And I think that was because the industry's arm was forced a little bit. Now we've got a mature, real solution, and I do think that that's the next step, really. As I said, we've no shyness about investing in this plant. The procurement plans and you know, are more than ever. We've 10 million set aside for electric and hybrid plant over the next 2 years, and we absolutely will invest that money there. So you know, all I would ask is anyone who has a project or an opportunity to have a comparison or to see the difference between the two, please take us up on the opportunity of hiring one. There's other people through the supply chain that also run these equipment. And if you haven't had one, then I'd absolutely challenge that you do use one on your next project. Next slide. So alternative fuels, these are probably a bit of a stopgap on the journey to electrification. So all of our plant, apart from some limited plant under 5 ton, we run off HVO. So we actually hold white HVO at our head office in Hemel. And the plant that goes out to your projects does actually have that as part of our journey to carbon reduction. There are some major projects that fully run from HVO fuel, which is fantastic. And obviously we do have other customers that we're respectful and mindful at this stage. They are still using traditional white diesel. The best thing about the HVO or the uses of it is that there's no reason to drain any filters. There's no change in the machine at all. So you know, it really is our customer's choice of what they use. But as a business, we've decided on HVO fuel. We also run a large portion of our haulage fleet from HVO fuel now exclusively. So we do have tippers on the road. We have HGVs on the road, all running from HVO. And we do think that that is the best stopgap as it is now. Similar to electric plant, we have got some NDAs, sorry, unfortunately, on haulage and with plant. But I seriously believe that in the next 3 to 4 years, maybe not quite as what people want to hear, but there is some exciting steps surrounding hydrogen. Yeah, we're certainly part of the journey for that. So, and again, that falls back to electrification. So at this stage, the plant is perhaps on the smaller side, but it is absolutely getting bigger. And yeah, next slide, sorry. So at this point in time, our biggest focus and shift is on eco driver training. As I said before, with the plant being limited and the actual site setups at this point in time not quite being ready for full electric, we've actually started to think of ourselves as a business, and again, we've partnered with Flannery's on this to get this made an NOCN site right. So this is now being accredited and rolled out across the industry. So we developed what is called eco driver training. And it sounds really simple, but you'd be absolutely surprised at the amount of operators that are operating in the wrong selection mode, or who, you know, there's some pushback and challenge that we found that we would get asked, oh, you send this data and we've highlighted that operator A is idling for 70% of the time. And we think that's really bad. Could you help us get that down? We would go out, meet operator A, and realize that he was working 2 miles away from his nearest welfare facility. And he would only be able to get back to that welfare at certain times with, you know, the van picking him up and taking him back. So during the peaks of winter, like anybody else, he wants to stay warm. He wants to stay, you know, with the comfort of radio or his phone on charge, whatever that may be. So they'd be idling and having the engine run. What we sort of found and pushed back was that the site setups, again, just needed consideration and changing. And with the adoption of some more welfare, we was actually able to get the idling times of the machines down into sort of from 70-80% of some operators down into sort of 20-30%. Now that 20-30% may seem a little too high, but there will also always be elements of idling in new plant, especially as a stage 4 equipment has the filters on, which need DPF filters, which will need a certain amount of time to run to burn off any nasty particulates that are generated through the course of the day. And what we found is a huge saving, not only in CO2. So the CO2, as I said before, we've got down by 60-70%, but also we've saved the project some serious money. So we did a 6-month eco driver training study on the M4 with Balfour Beatty. And for ourselves and another provider, we actually saved the project £450,000 in fuel that absolutely would have been burnt without this training. So you can see that in 6 months, almost £500,000, and the CO2 that was saved through that we should really be focusing as an industry on our operators and on the plant that is available now, because the reality is, whether we want to accept it or challenge it, that electric plant is quite limited in the size. Hydrogen plant is realistically 3 to 4 years away from mass production, as much as we're meeting with some people on conversion kits. We also have a hybrid plant being quite limited because the focus shifted to electrification. So what we actually have is an opportunity to focus on ourselves and improve the industry through operators. So that's absolutely where our focus has been. And I think that's quite similar now to any of the larger plant hire companies out there. And as I said, if there's any questions surrounding an electric plant, or if anybody, you know, has any information they can provide to us, because I can assure you we're spending a lot of time and energy trying to take this forward. And the options are limited, and I hope that doesn't come across as negative, because we are actually at an exciting start of the journey. But as I would say, maybe half the people on this call now may have either a hybrid or a full electric car. I think that will be the case in 5 to 10 years' time for plant, but we are just at the very start of this journey. So that really is it from me. If I'm honest, I'm sorry, it's probably 5 minutes short of the target time. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or to elaborate on anything anyone would like to know more about. So yeah, that's where we are.
Thanks a lot, James. Don't worry about the time at all. It's, that was great insight, and we appreciate, you know, the candid nature of your contribution this morning in terms of recognising those challenges and difficulties as we transition to electric plant in the industry. Really interesting stuff, and I was taken by that example that you shared of, you know, the £450,000 saving over 6 months from the driver training. Clearly that saving probably would have been a lot more in today's prices. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
it becomes a lot more important, doesn't it?
So we've sat out again with SCS on High Speed 2. We conducted this again over just 16 machines for 3 months, and we saved the project £45,000 on 16 machines. Now that project's got close to 200 machines, and you can only do it, you know, we're not the sole supply. But we've actually gone out now, and we are working collaboratively with the other plant provider. So to sort of watch this space really, and I think that's something that could be offered across the industry.
Great. I'm just looking, glancing at the questions just to see if we can handle any of those very quickly. Hydrogen fueled plant.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in terms of time frame of transition to hydrogen fuel cells within plant?
So realistically, I don't think there'll be any mass sites running from hydrogen for a decade. It is the reality from what I can tell now. So we're actually meeting with a company in 2 weeks' time who have or believe they have the answer to converting diesel combustion engines to run from hydrogen. But then there's a lot of questions and challenges around actually producing it, storing it effectively. So the pushback is almost, we're the easy part. I can assure you of that. We've got the time and the willingness to invest in hydrogen plant. The challenge really is the infrastructure behind storing it, generating it, and then successfully keeping that going really. As soon as you can make a combustion engine run from hydrogen, the answer's there. So I know from the trials we've seen that there's one big manufacturer, I'm sure everyone's seen the machine that they have that is hydrogen ready. I know that from trials around Europe, what's happening, the burn rate of hydrogen is very aggressive compared to diesel. And at the minute it's just blowing through pistons. So the material that needs for the engine chambers, they just need to be a little bit more robust at this stage, because they're running for a certain amount of hours and then the actual engines are blowing up. So yeah, and again, I know that High Speed 2 were very passionate about implementing hydrogen, and I think they've had some serious pushback from government when it comes to trying to store a large volume of hydrogen in Camden, and obviously the risks that come with that.
Right, it's an infrastructure issue, isn't it? As per the EV charging infrastructure that we touched on.
Again, As I said, it's really not to be negative. We've spent a lot of money on electric plant, and we're very excited by it. You know, we run electric vehicles. It's natural for us to journey into electric plant. It is the way forward, we believe. But the adoption rate of electric plant at this point in time has been very slow. As I said, it's a sad reality that realistically, if I had you know, an electric 1.5 ton compared to an electric diesel, most of the time that electric machine will be sitting in the yard, compared to the diesel. And it is purely because people just don't know how to work around it or how to charge it. It's not because the machine can't do the same job.
Okay. Thanks, James. Really appreciate that, and invite any other comments into the chat or Q&A so we can continue that discussion towards the end of the webinar if possible. I'd like now to introduce Andy, who's been very patiently waiting to present about his company, Welfare Hire. Andy, we met, didn't we, a few weeks ago at the Sustainable Supply Chain Group meeting that National Highways run for the Regional Delivery Partnership, and you presented to the room full of prime contractors. I was really taken by the features and benefits that Welfare Hire have within your portfolio. So thanks for joining this morning, and I'll pass across to you now.
Pleasure, thank you. Can't see anybody, no idea who's listening, but hello everyone. Thanks for having us. I'll try and keep the momentum going. Some great discussion points already that we can certainly progress further with this part of the session. Can you see a grey screen with some text?
Yeah, that's coming through fine, Andy.
Fantastic. So we're going to talk about site setup. You know, we talked a little bit about how you design and build sites. So, you know, if you like what you build, let's talk about how you build it. And you'll see a lot of crossover with what James just described in Lynch. The good news is we can probably, well, not probably, definitely accelerate that journey, at least in the area of welfare and lighting. So everything we do is towable, mobile and eco, without exception. And just a quick snapshot on who we are in case there's anybody who's doesn't have the full picture. Kelling Group, of which Welfare Hire is a division, has around 3,000 assets, a little bit more now. There's sort of 30 million in capex going in annually into our fleet and our business, and the average age is 2.5 years. So as such, we can offer you the largest and most modern fleet in the market, bar none. And the other thing to point out, without getting into detail on the products for the purpose of this session, there's a lot of IP in there, a lot of innovation in design. So with respect, if you've not come across our units before, you won't have seen anything like it, because it's our own design, build and manufacture. So with us having our control of our own units and the strong backing financially in the modern fleet, that really affords us a great opportunity to provide some game-changing options for national highways, amongst others. I'm sure nobody's ever come along and said they don't offer good quality or good service, but there are two aspects I'm going to focus on today around sustainability and well-being. And so if we take the environmental aspect first, which is rightly so very topical and ever-growing arms and legs, a little bit like we've just heard about, you know, how to power units, how to drive sustainability, reduce fuel emissions and fuel consumption. I myself, I think James mentioned we're behind the automotive industry by 10 years. I think that's being generous. I'm actually from the automotive industry myself, and we see a lot of great innovation. We talked about electric vehicle charging, for example. We don't see hydrogen cars, we don't see solar cars, even though they have all that paneling facing the sky, but we do see battery powered vehicles, and we're essentially taking the most of the tried and tested technology and adopting it into our welfare and lighting. So lithium hybrid with solar is definitely the way forward as far as we're concerned. And the other thing as well is, often when you go for you know, greener technology, battery technology, etc., you reduce the capability of the unit. It doesn't last as long, it's not as powerful, it needs more recharging, etc., etc. Again, we just heard on that a little bit around heavy plant. Well, with our proposition, you don't have to compromise. So we'll offer you the latest in green technology. We'll offer you low carbon or zero carbon running, and we'll get onto that, but we'll also improve the facilities at the same time. So the message here is you don't have to compromise. I know we do in some other areas, and we're waiting for technology and capability to catch up. But in this area, if there's one thing to take away today, just remember that you don't have to compromise. You can have the best, most modern kit, you can have the greenest kit, and you can improve your facilities on site. So what the hell does eco mean anyway? You know, there's all kinds of great ideas out there: solar, hydrogen, different fuel cells, loads of great ideas and initiatives. Everything I'm going to show you today is tried and tested and proof positive from our fleet of 2,000 assets. So our take is to harness lithium batteries and solar as much as you can with backup HVO gensets. And the other aspect as well, which the entire industry isn't really talking about yet, is the servicing and the welfare facilities in terms of toilets. So all of our units have a central integrated water tank, which essentially quadruples the amount of water you can use. And from a toilet perspective, it's non-chemical, it's water flush ceramic toilets like you'd have at home or in the office. And it doesn't need servicing weekly or more frequently. So the transport aspect, the carbon footprint of servicing the units is drastically reduced, whilst you improve the hygiene and wash facilities. So that's our approach. I won't bore you with the detail of all the ins and outs, but there's a lot of unique design into our units. And so you can have smart kit, but the other part of the equation is to enable that. And again, we talked about, you know, training people in the earlier session to optimize utilization and get the most out of the kit. Well, our units are very intuitive, and we also have smart telemetry, which allows us to monitor and enable optimal usage of that, you know, that technology. So you don't potentially have a dumb unit on site that's not being fully utilized. So in turn, that helps us address the challenges that we're all wrestling with in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of water shortages, which probably doesn't get as much attention as it might, and also you know, changing the fuel source as well. So we can tackle all of that in one go, and the way to do that is to use eco smart power and an eco smart water system. The two combined with smart telemetry really enables you to make the most out of your sites. And by the way, this is here and now. It's not a concept. It's not a prototype. It's not, we've got a few in the fleet and we're hoping, you know, we can develop more. We've got this as standard now. And so I'm going to share with you a highways case study. We do work with rail and other infrastructure. That's where we invest, but specifically a highways one for the purpose of this session. And while I'm going to refer to a specific case study, just know that we've got over 500,000 hire days of data accumulated from various sites, various projects, various clients from our entire fleet. So this is proof positive, and it's empirical data, volumetric data. So everything that we're going to share with you is tried and tested, and it's available right here, right now. So back to the power and the welfare, you can have large modern welfare units with water flush toilets, with separate offices, with heating, with full kitchen facilities, with charging points, etc., etc. And you can run that from lithium battery and solar, and you can also reduce the fuel emissions. The other side of the equation I mentioned was lighting. You can adopt the same on lighting. And so just to give you an idea, these are the greenest and brightest lights on the market, yet they can run silently for 12 hours from battery. So that's the kind of capability that's out there. And from this particular project, we clocked the first year. So it was the A46, which is one of the RDP partners' flagship projects for national highways. And these were the savings achieved in year one. And all of this was clocked on site with volumetric data. So we can measure that to the litre, to the kilogram, to the pound. So it's not to be sniffed at when you aggregate the savings that are out there to be had. And that's really something that I would invite you all to look at carefully. So just to recap, you've got the three bits. You've got the EcoSmart power, the water, and then the telemetry to enable you to get the most out of that. But taking it a step further, can we actually get to carbon zero now? And I think when Dean was on, he was talking about the 2030, 2040, 2050 objectives. Well, how about 2022? So this is looking at the next generation that we have in the fleet. And again, there are hundreds of these out there in circulation with lots of our client base already taking full advantage of it. And all this is based on empirical data. And essentially, I've already described how it works. But if we take the actual run rates already since March, we're seeing enough solar energy in the even in the UK to power these units. And so you can see the split there from sort of March and April. We were 42% of the power, the direct power used was from solar, 54% from the lithium batteries, and 4% from HVO genset. It's worth pointing out that you know, solar's not going to save everything, because you know, in the winter there will be darker days, or less daylight hours, and you may be parked under a bridge, or there may be some obstacles in the way of that. But the idea is to mitigate that by prioritizing solar and lithium power. And already we're now at zero genset since April. The other aspect then is the water servicing. So we're averaging a service every 10 weeks. So the entire industry is geared towards chemical toilets, weekly service. Okay, that's one way of doing it, but you can actually have a bigger centrally integrated water tank with rainwater harvesting, with you know, smart telemetry, so that we can book the service when required rather than guessing it needs a service. And we've managed to prove that we can extend that service interval from weekly to 10 weekly. So essentially you can divide everything by 10 in terms of costs, transport, hassle, risk of vehicles on site, etc., etc. So why would you not want to do that? Because the other thing this does is it improves your wash facilities. So you can have a water flush toilet. And here's how we do it with the gauges. I won't bore you on the detail, but we can clock this, and again, this is all demonstrable. So ultimately you can, again, to the pound, you can work out the savings. And this is a typical saving for one unit in 1 month. There's also other aspects around that in terms of wider ESG or social value goals around noise pollution, risk on site of transport, risk of storing fuel, service requirements, you know, the costs associated with that, potential downtime, and ultimately improving well-being on site too. So you're providing more modern facilities with greater capability. And just to finish off, we've taken that further now, and we've aggregated all of the data into a calculator that's free for use on our website, and we'll happily share the link after this. So you can, rather than us showing you what you did on your project, you can proactively plot this out. So you can say, right, I have a project coming up, I can choose the portfolio of assets that I need, the period, that kind of basic data, and you can do a comparison. So you can say, what could I save? And this is all based on that empirical data amassed over a couple of years. So it's really like, it's not theory. It's not, we think, you know, this will happen. It's not buying a new car and hoping for 65 mpg and then realizing you're only getting 42 because you don't drive around on frictionless roads without hills and wind. This is based on actual site data. So it's there for you to use. I would invite you to put us to the test. If you haven't used one of these already, the question is why not? It's readily available. We're here to develop and progress those carbon agendas and really help you engender carbon reduction. It's only the start. There's a lot more going on, and in the background, I'm not going to go into the detail, but this is available right here, right now, and there's an even better journey ahead of us. So when I mentioned future proofing, I'm not paying lip service. This is something you can get off to a good start now, and it will only get better. So you'll move with the times. You won't have a legacy of redundant assets or outdated ways of working. And so it's here and available. I've probably, hopefully, kept to time. I'm going to stop rambling at this point and invite any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. You did indeed stick to time, so we're grateful for that. And we've got some time now for Q&A. The really impressive stats, Andy, from welfare hire, and as you say, just the beginning of the journey. Great listening to the case study, and particularly struck by the advantages in terms of water use reduction as well as carbon reduction that your units offer, because as we all know, that water is a very scarce and becoming a scarcer commodity in this day and age. So that's another big environmental benefit, surely. Gonna just now move on to a question that we had earlier, and if Tom is still around, not wanting to put you on the spot, Tom, but there was a question that came through, so hopefully you'll be able to respond to this, and if not, then if you do need to research and come back, then please do. But Sarah's asked, as part of the webinar, in terms of whole life calculations, you mentioned that whole life calculations were done for the bridges, and Sarah was wondering if there was any specific EPDs that had been completed, and what percentage breakdown of the bridge carbon footprint is reduced with the manufacturing process being based in the UK compared to steel production elsewhere.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, that is something I'd take it offline. I can come back to you. It's not a problem. I know that I'm not the inventor of the bridge, but Matt Greenoff, the chap who is, has done a lot of research and has done a lot of liaison with various universities and the National Composite Centre. So it's something we might be able to answer, but I can take that offline and we can come back.
Okay. Hopefully that's okay, Sarah. I'll provide all of the presenters' details, if they're okay with that, to the audience after the webinar. And Andy, you were going to pass through your slides, weren't you? I've got everybody else's, so we'll PDF those and send them around to everybody following this session. Yeah, just we've got sort of 10-15 minutes left, so if you'd like to open up the conversation, I'd invite anyone to share their thoughts. Some of the presenters have been very sort of transparent, haven't they, with their views on, yes, the successes and the accelerated change, but recognizing that there's still a lot of work to do on this agenda, and there are significant challenges still that we face and that we need to overcome. So if anyone does have any thoughts, and drop them into the chat, or now's your opportunity to stick your hand up, and I can put those to any of our panelists.
While people are doing that, Andy, can I just shout out? Claim some sort of presenter prerogative, I don't know. Andy, thank you for saying, I'm not going to wait to 2030. 2022 is fine for your equipment. That's great. This EPD question, I think to any suppliers, anyone in the supply chain, is really interesting. Perhaps somebody can correct me, but I think it's the EPDs, the environmental product declarations that exist for infrastructure products, commodities, is quite limited. I think it's better in building. I don't know if you know that, Andy, can confirm, but it's something that I think the infrastructure sector needs to advance.
In terms of which aspect, sorry?
Just having really literally, Andy, having that bit of paper to say this is sourced in this way. It's the emissions, the energy. Telling that story with a with certificate. I know you've got the data on yours. That's fine. But when we're buying a product or material, yeah, that's where I'm going.
It's a really valid point, because I mentioned I'm from a different background that's probably more regulated, to be fair. So it's easy to see what a vehicle does and doesn't do, and what there are regulations and standards for components, parts, and the whole thing. Apart from maybe the odd naughty boy or girl at Volkswagen and the like fooling people on emissions, you pretty much can compare and contrast. And it's the devil's own job. How do you weigh up, all these brilliant ideas and takes on stuff? How the hell do you compare and contrast, apples and bananas and oranges? Mm-hmm. So because there isn't that standardization and that regulation driving it, you can effectively say what you want, can't you, and try what you like. So that's why we've done this, spent a lot of time clocking this data, so at least we can say that's what ours does. And then it's a case of, as an industry, how do you move towards standardizing? I know the school itself is doing things around a charter and a calculator, and these are great endeavors. But again, there's all kinds of plant out there to pull into the mix. So I think it needs siphoning off and consume the elephant in bite-sized chunks, because, with respect, the gold standard of the charter for specification for the area we work in, we were exceeding already, I think, something like 4 years ago. So it's hard to find what the average par for the course is, and we can't click our fingers and magic away the legacy of everything in the industry. We have to be pragmatic, but equally, there's nothing wrong with being a bit bolshier and a bit more ambitious, where you can maybe pick up the pace in some areas, a bit like we heard on some of the design and materials that are out there, whether it's bridges or other things. Doesn't mean it's available en masse for the whole industry at this stage, but why you should don't move at the speed of the slowest in the pack. That would be, if I can put that politely. I'm not trying to be disparaging there. I appreciate it's a lot to wrestle. So working out a standard is a great way to do that. How do you compare and contrast? Start with some standards and recognize that.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Thanks for that, Dean. Other questions come through from Sarah. Thanks, Sarah. You win a prize for being the most active, proactive member of the audience. So thanks for asking your questions this morning. This one's for you, Dean. In terms of roadmaps for steel, concrete, and asphalt, you mentioned those as part of your input. When these roadmaps are going to be released? Sarah was asking.
Oh, I think we're somewhere off, Sarah. This is starting the debates really with the what's the right word? Not the individual manufacturers. The help me here, somebody. The associations. Thank you. That'll do. In those three areas, that I made a mistake many years ago. I know materials is our biggest carbon footprint on a job, and I looked at where the big numbers were, and yes, steel, concrete, asphalt. But as we've heard, and relevant to at least two of our speakers this morning, the biggest single ticket item is our fuel consumption, traditionally diesel. And I'd missed that despite looking at these numbers for years, Andy, so I should have taken a lesson from you on, read the data, Dean. But those, when, we build and we repair, so asphalt, steel and concrete are big things in long life, heavy civil engineering. With great respect to Thomas and what he was showing, he's probably got, no, Dean, you don't need to use those, which is fine. And that's a massive gain, isn't it? That's, you say, that substitute, that change. Do I need to build anything? Do I need that bridge between the two platforms? Extreme example, Tom. assuming I do need to get people over there, then what do I build? But where we are now with our infrastructure, particularly the road part of it, the structures aspect, I think has opportunities. Then they're the three big areas, and we're working with those associations. Just to be really optimistic about this, I had a chat with the with CARES looking at rebar. So, and I know there's other options now, but looking at steel rebar, and they said they have a 3 rosette system, a bit like the car 5-star safety system. And I think when that came out, no car was 5-star, and now you probably would turn your nose up if a car wasn't 5-star. Well, you think, what the heck's going on here? And they offer 3 rosette system, and they have some, I think, European, UK suppliers certified to that. And bless them, I just sort of said, well, what about more? What about zero carbon? What about circularity? What about responsible sourcing and the labour and all sorts of things like that? And they went away, and a short while later, we got an email from the CEO and sustainability lead saying, we've developed a fourth rosette. Nobody's got it yet, but they put it out there. And I think the associate working with the associations on concrete, steel and asphalt. That's the challenge. You know, what can you do? Having said that, the Concrete Association does have a route map to net zero and beyond already. So you know, as a big client, maybe not the biggest, but as a big client, you know, we want to work with them and see what comes. But nothing to share today.
Thanks, Dean. All I'd add as maybe an interesting point in addition is the fact that through the school's website, we host your, i.e. National Highways category procurement strategies, which are live documents for the supply chain to reference and have access to. So if I just, hopefully this will work, I can very quickly share my screen and hopefully show people where those are. Because we were asked to provide those by, can people see that? Can people see the website, the school website now?
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah. So if you see at the top, I've gone to supplychainschool.co.uk/partners and then /national highways to get the National Highways partner page. And this is a record of all of the support work that the school is delivering for National Highways. But as part of that, we've hosted the strategic procurement strategies, as you see there. And there is one for concrete structures, there's one for structural steel, etc. And there's one for pavement, I think, as well, which would include asphalt, I presume. So those documentations are there for everyone to view. And there'll be contact points within those for the colleagues of deans who've drawn up those strategies for the sector. Hopefully that's been useful. Stop sharing now. Yeah, is there any other questions that people would like to ask our panelists? Or anything else that's come up that the panelists want to share, which they've thought that they should have mentioned and they haven't, and they'd want to leave with the audience before we close? Okay, well, we'll get some time back then in that case, which is always a good thing. So thanks very much to Andy, to Tom, to Dean and to James for being with us this morning. Hopefully that's been a useful information session for everyone concerned. We will send round the PDF versions of the slides following the session to this morning's audience and to those who couldn't make it also. And we have been recording the webinar, and we'll provide a link to that on that page that I've just shared, which is the information on everything that the school is doing in partnership with National Highways on sustainability. So have a good rest of the day and see you all very soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Bye.